Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon.
Hey guys, Vandy is back on another Card Fight Vanguard deck profiles. We enjoyed them. Select Conscriptions, which shall we? This time we are covering Dark States, Baphormedes, set 7. So, Barthomitis, if you don't know, is not a set 7 card. In fact, he is a promo grade 3, which is essentially what I call knockoff Bastion, except worse, because, like, it has the effect I would assume Bastion would have if Bastion was made nowadays, but, like, I don't know, I think Bastion just, and we're going by grade 3 Bastion, not grade 4 Bastion, because obviously grade 4 Bastion, like, hits like a truck. This is, like, still hits like a truck, just not as good. So let's go ahead and get this deck profile started, shall we? Maybe you can see what I mean by knockoff Bastion. If we got a few more good generic grade 3s, I would say this deck would be pretty good. First up, we have our starter and Desire Devil Tida, grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 6k base. On the road, upon every 1 second, draw a card. So standard start, not much about it. You just get that free draw if you went second. This deck is mostly try hard in the sense that I basically pulled together everything I wanted to. The only thing I didn't pull together were the name restrictive cards, so I still followed that trend of not running the name restrictors outside of the ride deck, but it's partially try hard. So yeah, that's why the ride deck is kind of like whatever I feel like it, and Tida's here because I don't know, he's the closest thing I could find to a dragon that wasn't Julius Draco Kid, because Julius Draco could just feel like he didn't belong with Baphormedes. So yeah, Tida, that's just our starter, because for some reason in my mind he's a dragon. I don't know why he's a dragon, in my mind he just is. And then we have our Overtrigger and Hades Dragon Deity of Resentment or Miguel Mage Held. Grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power. Overtrigger and move check and deck. If there's a trigger, move the card, draw a card, choose one of your 6 plus 1 mana for the turn. And if you're a villager, check at facial effect, which is during your turn, during your fight, you get during your turn, all your vanguards get plus 10k power and plus 1 crit till the end of the fight. So, thankfully that only lasts on your turn, but that basically means if you pull this at the earliest possible time, for the rest of the game, your Vanguard is always going to be a plus 10k and extra critical beat stick, which is dangerous because that means your Vanguard is a constant double critical, meaning your opponent's always going to guard it. I haven't seen the I haven't sacked the Overtrigger for Dark States in ages on aggressively, but I remember the days where I would. Instant game. Because there was no way you were just blocking me, because you'd have to drop so many cards, and I would always do it in either Bruce or Barrow, and with the ones that have multi-attacks, yeah, you're fucked if you're only blocking the Vanguard. So, all around, Engagement Shell is pretty nice, and I love the extra pressure. It's the reason why I play Dark States a lot, just because I want to see Gale Mage Held go off. So, yeah, you can really make this any Overtrigger. You'll go with the Albari, but obviously Gale Mage Held, based off of my preference, I'm going to go with it. So, one of the Overtrigger. Then we have our normal triggers. First two of Rouse Wild Master Riley. Grade 2, grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 4k base. Draw guard circle, opponent's Vanguard to grade 3 grade plus 5k shield. Standard draw, not special about it. She's just that 10k shield. You want the draws just to ever so slightly increase your hand, but especially because there's a lot of occasions where you might run into things that you kind of need, but at the same time, you don't need too many of them because it might deck you out in the long run. So having just 2 of them is a pretty good number for me. Then we have our 2 crits in Filthy Slasher. Don't worry, there are more of them. I just have the 2 crits up first because they're the vanilla ones. So, you know, we have some crits to abuse the fuck out of the big numbers that Baphormedes can hit. Then we have 3 normal fronts in Huckle Hassle. Yes, this is where the try-hard part comes in. If you want to put Diablo's Netanya here, you can. Like I said, outside of the ride line, I didn't go try-hard because, you know, Diablo's line thing. So, yeah, if you want to run the, go ahead, because frankly, I would have done it too if I was actually going full tryhard with this, but obviously I'm not going to, so 3 of Huckle Hassle, or just any front really, and then 4 crits of Steam Deviate Dragons. We have a total of 6 crits, 2 draws, 3 front, and then our 4 heals, and we'll get to that in a second. So Steam Deviate is auto rear at the end battle. He boosted, put him to soul, choose one vehicles plus 2k for the turn. Standard crit, not just much about it, it just goes to soul with that 2k. Honestly, not needed for the soul in 2k. You put it on board just to put it on board. There have been occasions where that 2k has been helpful, but most of the time it's just kept in hand. Though I have been calling it a lot more recently. Not that I shoved it still, just to call it. So who knows? Maybe one day it will be more useful than I think it is. Either way, 4 of Steam Deviate is just really nice. Then we have our 4 heals in Steam Scar, Mal, and Nijal. So grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k power. Yeah, we all know why I don't like the effect heals. They're a little bit too situational. I said it in my previous deck profile that I recorded today, where they only work. Or like the situations I see them being the most useful are when I'm going against Bastion, who hits like a truck, and Greedon. Not saying those are the only times I find them useful. Those are just the times know they're useful. That's just the only times I know they would be useful to me. And I'm not going to bank it on those chances I play one of those 2 decks, even though that is somewhat likely that I will play those 2 decks. So yeah, 4 of the normal heal, because I'm not going to waste shield on things that won't necessarily win me the game otherwise. So 4 Mail and Show. If you want to run the effect tools, go ahead, but I just prefer this one. And then we move on to our grade 1s. And by grade 1s, I mean only grade 1s. So first up, we have 4 copies of Fiend of the Neverworld, Ling, grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Okay. The only reason she's still here in this deck is simply because of the moon and nothing else. It has nothing to do with her. It has nothing to do with her skill. It is just the moon. Anyways, auto, when she's placed on rear, look at the top 2 cards, choose a card from among them, put it to soul, put the rest to bottom. Okay, that ability is good though because it's a selective search. There have been a lot of times where this helps me net grade 3s into souls for some reason. So that's really helpful because I do need a lot of grade 3s in souls. So early game, start stacking them quickly. I like Ling. She's one of my best grade 1s in the early game, but then after we get past the early game, she's kind of like that 50-50 card. So 4 of Ling. She serves her purpose for when I get her, but otherwise she's like iffy. So she's free though. Then move on to our PG, which is Repelled Malice Dragon. So grade 1 boost, 0 shield, 6k base, continuous sentinel. You may have always in deck, and auto when it's put on guard circle, choose one of your units that cannot be into battle, and if you have 2 more cards in your hand, just choose a card from hand, discard it. Standard PG, no special, basically that means if this and only one of the cards in your hand when you place it on guard circle, you do not have to discard it, which is amazing because that means you can be as aggressive as you want and not have to lose hand cards. And all around, that kind of tends to be the situation I'm in because the way this deck plays, or at least I play it, is rush your opponent down with as much as you can. The second you get to grade 3, your hand is probably in a situation and one of 2 things is about to occur. Either you will be dead within the next turn because they rush the hell out of you, or if they're not playing a deck that has a bunch of rushers, even though almost every deck has a way of multi-attacking now, thanks a lot for that one, Bushy, then you will probably be good enough to get to second grade 3 turn and probably kill them because this deck actually starts going on second grade 3 turn, but it's like, you know, the PG helps, basically, because there are times where I'm going to have to start ditching things I don't like, and there was that time I had to really think about persona writing and future-proofing shit, so, yeah, all around, the 4 PG is helpful. I really wish it worked if I only had 2 hand cards, not including itself, but hey, still good. I like the PG, and it still flocks to my hand relevance easily, so 4 of Repelled Malice. Then we have our grade 1, our last grade 1, is the one in the right deck, and that is Deep Sonicer. Really, this could have been any grade 1, but I just wanted this one because it was the most generic and it gets me a free soul charge. So, grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Its second ability does not matter at all, but I'm going to read it anyways. Auto when it's placed on Vanguard, you may soul charge 1, or you have to soul charge 1, and then it continues rearguard during your turn. If your soul has 10 or more cards, it gets plus 10k. Okay, that second ability would never go off because there's absolutely no way to call stuff from soul. That's a straight up lie. There is a way to call stuff from soul. I completely forgot about the card I just put in this deck today. Never mind. So there is a way to use that ability. There have been occasions where this deck has gotten to 10 soul. Not when I use it, though. Though my friend used it, he somehow got to 19, and I greatly question how, but he did, and somehow the deck was still alive. He lasted long enough to get to 19 soul and die by deck out when I can't do that. The most I get is 15. And not in terms of soul count, in terms of deck count, and I'm questioning, how the fuck did he do, was he just, I know he was trigger sacking me a lot, or at least damage sacking me a lot, but how is he doing it? There weren't that many soul charges in that deck, how the fuck was he doing it? Either way, Deep Sonicer all around is just good, because if we do end up calling it from soul, he's an 18k booster, or swinger, which is amazing, because half the time we have to suck grade 3s into soul, and those are mainly our main swingers, so having an extra 18 is pretty nice, and that free soul charge on grade 1, why not? So one of in the right deck, especially because you can call from soul. Then move on to our grade 2s, and by grade 2s, I mean the only grade 2 that's actually in the main deck, and that is 4 copies of Ultrasound Shrine, whatever. Grade 2 and 5k shield, 10k base, auto when she's placed on rear from hand, counterbalance 1, look at top 3, choose a card from among them, put it to your soul, and shuffle your deck, and if your soul has 4 more different grades, draw a card. Okay, there are 3 different cards that are competing for counterblast, one of them is far more important than the other, then there's this one which is right in the middle, and then the third one is if you really fucking need it, that's when you use it. So Ultrasound is pretty nice, she just gets you a possible grade 3 to soul. There's all those occasions where I'll just see 3 triggers, and then I get fucked over immediately by that, but, you know, the other part is if you have 4 different grades in soul, which is mostly likely to happen, you'll get that free draw. So Ultrasound all around is pretty nice. She possibly gets you a draw, but she mainly is here for stacking grade 3s in a soul, which when I'm playing this deck, never works. When my friend plays this deck, always works. Again, I say, why? I'm the one that built this deck. Why the hell does it work better for him than it works for me? He learned that style. He learned how to play this deck from me. How the fuck is he doing it better? Either way, 4 of Ultrasound, just 4. By the way, I'm not saying in the sense that he's better than, well, he probably is better than me at this deck, but also this stupid bullshit he pulls off is the same bullshit I would pull off if I had those cards. So 4 of Ultrasound, it's just a good grade 2. Then move on to our last grade 2, which is the grade 2 of the right deck, and that is Diablo's Anger Richard. Yeah, so this was the hard one because I actually tried to find every grade 2 possible that had a Vanguard skill, and to my knowledge, the ones I found, all of them were, except for him, were restrictive to riding to a very specific grade 3. If there's a grade 2 and I missed it, I'm going to be real upset with myself, but to my knowledge, these were the only ones that allowed you to that had to be rider specific grade 3. I even tried to check Bushaku because I really wanted Bushaku for this because Bushaku would work best, but nope, couldn't find it. So or couldn't work with it because Bushaku requires greed on. Anyways, Richard is a grade 2 5k shield 10k base. His second ability will never go off in this deck, not because you can't call him from souls, because this deck doesn't do the capabilities of Final Rush. But Auto was placed on Van, put a rear guard to soul, draw a card, and then use rear guard if your Final Rush he gets +5. Like I said, that second ability will never go off. The first ability is there for you call a rear guard to your board, probably Ling, because if you're anything like me, she ends up in your hand very quickly, and then you immediately shove her to soul, so you can at least try to draw more grade 3, so when you get to grade 3, you can beat the shit out of your opponent with them. All around, that's kind of like what Richard's purpose is. It sounds easy. For some reason, it never works that way. But the best part about it is I'll at least draw a defensive card that will lead into a good grade 3, or at least a crit on my drive check. So either way, Richard's a nice one of. I like having him in the ride deck. Obviously, you don't run him in the main deck because you can't use the skill, so one of in the ride deck of Richard. And now onto the grade 3 party, because like everything else in this deck is a grade 3. First up, we have 3 copies of one of the two remaining counterblasters, and this is the one where you use it if you have to, not if you want to. And that is 3 copies of Phase Transition Dragon. Grade 3 generic persona, 13k base, auto rear when this unit attacks, counterblast 1, choose a card from your soul, put it to drop, and increase this unit's power by the original shield of that card, and you put it to drop to battle. Okay. That does absolutely nothing with half your deck because this is original shield and doesn't stack off Baphormedes. So either it's getting 5k shield from everything that isn't a trigger, or you do the right thing, you soul blast a trigger and it's a plus 15k, or you, unless it's this for some reason, or you just soul blast this and he's a 63 automatically. Clearly, you know what the smart decision is, but all around he's pretty nice, just being able to hit such big numbers kind of quickly. Like I said, the downside is he costs a counterblast. I really do wish he was just a discard or a soul blast, but whatever. He's nice. He does end up getting that finishing blow if you really need him to hit high numbers, but I don't like the fact I have no ways to counterblast him, so I do not use him unless I absolutely need to. So 3 of Phase Transition. He is essentially the finisher of this deck, and he's here because he's a grade 3 and a generic grade 3. I literally tried to get all the generic grade 3s because I think we all know at this point that I hate using cards that I can't use the full abilities of, and like Richard here is the exception because I couldn't find another grade 2 that I was willing to put in, because otherwise I'd have to put in a vanilla grade 2 that does absolutely nothing on ride and probably doesn't have a soul. Actually, I could have put in Ixpiller. If Ixpiller has a Vanguard skill, I'm gonna laugh my ass off. But yeah, 3 of Phase Transition, it's good. Then we have our 4 Time Gyrate Dragon, aka the card I put in here for the sole purpose of doing what it does best, and I put it in here. I rarely see it, or I rarely see all 4 copies of it. I only see 2 a game at most, and my friend sees all 4 of this back to back and then uses it to stack his grade 3. This is how he got 19 soul. He just happened to draw all 4 Time Gyrates, but I couldn't draw 1. Or I couldn't draw 3. So Time Gyrate is auto when it's placed on rear, put a hand card to soul, draw a card. Very simple. It's a free way to stack grade 3s in the soul though, and that's really nice for Baphormedes because you want to be able to hit that 3 cards in soul, preferably or 3 grade 3s in soul, but preferably before you hit the battle phase, so your grade 3's going to have some boosting powers before they start going to soul for Baphormedes skill, but hey, it gets you a grade 3 in the soul regardless, hopefully, so all around just a good enough reason for that, and it does it for free. Good card. I like it as a 4 of. It's just nice to have. Then we have 4 copies of Execution Dragon, Vorpal Scythe Dragon, grade 3 turn persona, 13k base. The sole reason I was able to win that game against Barthomitis is simply because I just let this thing hit and he had to deck out because of it. So, and he didn't realize he would deck out from it because he didn't realize it was a mace skill, and then he soul charged 2 when he was at like 5 deck cards. So anyways, Vorpal Spartar, or I don't know why I keep calling him, why is it in my mind his name is Vorpal Spartar from Buddy Fight? Anyways, after rear, once per turn, soul blast 2, choose an opponent's rear guard, murder it. You definitely have the soul for this because you soul blast everything that isn't a grade 3, and you would definitely run into, regardless if you're me or him, you will definitely run into cards in your soul that aren't grade 3, so getting that free kill is pretty nice. And then auto rear, when this unit attack hits, you may soul charge 2. Cool, it can hit into anything, doesn't matter if it's a van or rear. Hell, if it could hit rear, if it could hit units in the damage zone, it can hit units in the damage zone and get the effect off. You just get a free soul charge 2, and it's a May, which means you don't have to use it. And if you do use it, you're probably going to hit 2 grade 3s off it. Hopefully you hit 2 grade 3s. All around, Vorpal Scythe is pretty good. I like him. He gets that free on to hit. He gets to retire. And I really wanted to use him in a deck for a long time now because I thought he was a main grade 3, but he wasn't. Thankfully, he works so much wonders in this deck because he's so generic. So 4 Vorpal Scythe. Then we have the card that is, you know, I said we had 3 counterblasters. There was this one that you only use it if you have to. There's this one who's the mid-range, where if you kind of need the support, you kind of do it, or like you'll do it if you have the spare. And then there's this, who you use it pretty much whenever you can. Because Heat, Haze, Acrobat, Melosolva is a grade 3 with 200 Persona Ride 13k base. Auto when she's placed on the rear from your hand during your main phase. Counterblast 1, choose a card from your soul with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard. Put the chosen card to your hand, and if it was the same name as the Vanguard, put it to your hand if it was the same name as your Vanguard, or call it to rear guard if it wasn't. So essentially, if you are on Baphormedes and then you have a Baphormedes in soul and you pick Baphormedes, you add it to hand. But if it's not Baphormedes, you just get to call it. So cool can basically call anything that is the same grade as your Vanguard or less. And then it can possibly net you back a Persona Ride. And then if you put a card from your hand, if you put a card into your hand, she gets +5. So technically you are benefiting from getting a Persona Ride, but I would prefer half the time not to get the Persona Ride, because even though I do have a lot of Persona Rides, and there was a time I had to call a Persona Ride to use its effect, so honestly I wouldn't mind this. I prefer it to use the skill to get more grade 3s out of Soul. Because 1, Time Gyrate is not an on-place from hand, he's just an on-place from anywhere, which means I can just have a hand card of Soul and get a draw, which is going to be far more useful than before. But then also just the fact of, I get to get more rear guards into board, and before we had this card, my constant problem was I would only have 2 grade 3s at a time, meaning I get constantly fucked over, because then I wouldn't be able to fully benefit off of Barthomitis. But thanks to Melosolva, now I can fully, or at least get more benefit out of it, because now I have grade 3s, and suddenly Melosolva turns 1 grade 3 into 2 grade 3s, as long as I have at least another one in Soul. I like Melosolva, she's amazing, nice grade 3, gets me rear guards, possibly gets me a Persona Ride in 5k, just a free of, 4 of, and I really wish she didn't cost a counterblast because I could be a little bit more consistent with ultrasound, but you know what, it's fine because she deserves it because she's good at this. And then we have our last unit in the deck and our last card in the deck, which is Demonic Lord of Hades Blaze, Baphormedes. Such a cool-ass name for a promo that no one's ever going to see, because knowing Bushy, we're not going to get this promo in English for fucking years, or at least for another few months, and no one's going to play it because, frankly, it's like, where's passion? My friend and me both agree on this with this deck. It's fun to play, it's just not that good. So grade 3 200 Persona 13k base, auto van, when this unit attacks, put 2 grade 3 rear guards to soul. That is the constant problem I had because it had to be 2. Draw a card, and this unit gets plus 10k to end the battle for every 3 cards unit soul. Okay, for the record, that is not broken if it would be for every 1. Yes, that game that I had with my friend where he had 19 cards in soul, it would have hit 100 and something if it was for every 1, but it doesn't fucking matter because PGs exist. Like, no matter what, if it gets to a high enough number, you have to drop 3 cards anyways, pretty much. So, assuming, because if it got to the high enough number, you would have to drop 3 or more. So, I do wish it was for everyone. I know why it's themed around the 3, but, like, I really wish it was for everyone, because that's honestly not broken. I played it when I thought it was everyone, and even in that situation where he had 19 soul and a lot of them are grade 3s, and it definitely would have hit over 100, it wouldn't have stopped me from winning. It just would have made it ever so slightly more difficult. It would give us reason to buy a promo, because this thing is awesome, and I really wish they had that, but nah, but she screwed that one up. And then continues Vanguard, this unit gets the following according to the number of grade 3s in your soul. If you have 3 or more, which is the easy one to hit, all your grade 3s units get plus 5k shield and boost. So cool. That does nothing. Like, the 5k shield, it helps, but it doesn't do much, because that's at most 4, 8, 12, 15, plus another 3, so 18, and you're not going to sack all of these, so not good shield values. You see, if they give it Intercept, that's what their first problem was. They didn't give these fuckers Intercept for some reason, but whatever. And they have Boost, which actually does help for the aggressiveness on the Persona Ride turn, so I'll give them that. I don't know why they didn't give them Intercept. I know he's a promo, but they should have given him the ability to give them Intercept. I don't know why they didn't, but they didn't. So, cool, 5k shield and boost, and then 6 or more. For the battle this unit attacked, okay, that's fair. When your opponent would call cards from the hand to guard circle, they must call 3 or more at the same time. Yeah, that actually kind of is the reason why this deck is dangerous, because if you actually can get the 3 or more in soul very quickly, because remember, all these abilities go off when your opponent's not at grade 3, or they can go off when they're not at grade 3. Meaning, if you go first, deck does dangerous things, because like there was a time where I had 6 grade 3s in soul when my opponent was at grade 2, because I got really lucky. I was swinging for 33 and I stacked 2 crits on my drive check. They took it because they were at 1 damage, but imagine they having to guard that. They had 5 hand cards. If they actually had to guard that, they would go down to 2, and they would still go to 5 at the end of this because I had another rear guard coming in. Like, that would have sucked for them. It would be instant game unless they started top deck, because I think it was Eugene I was playing against. So Baphormedes all around is pretty great. Like, that 5k shield, that boost is nice. I really do wish they gave him intercept so there was a little bit better of the grade 3s, but it's fine. And just the calling 3 or more, that is honestly a dangerous skill because it forces out so much hand cards. Even PGs don't stop this. So, you know, 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the ride deck. If you can get the Persona Ride off, it's great. But, like, honestly, you can kind of afford to let the Persona Ride go, especially when we have this backing us up. So, all around, it's just a good card. That's it for the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. All around, it's, like I said before, it's pretty fun. It's not that it's not bad. Sorry, it's not that it's bad, because it is good. It genuinely is good. Just now when you compare to like stuff like Baphormedes and Transrooter, who's actually getting genuine support, I think all it really needs is just give grade 3s intercept, and then give us a little bit more generic grade 3s that can either get numbers or just a little bit more consistency on it. And honestly, this deck is good, because remember, these are a bunch of generic pack filler put together cards, and they're fucking kicking ass. It's strong, it drops hand cards. We just need a little bit more on the defensive side with intercept givers and just 1 or 2 more generic grade 3s. And honestly, we were good. So I'm going to end it here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join Discord, follow Twitch, and I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to stand up your vanguards.